Hello there, Michael Bryant, Justice Serve TV.
And Linda Kenny Bodden here, also of Justice Serve TV.
Hey, I just got a notice that nice. I just got notice that we're live, so
we're live.
that worked. That worked at least for me. I got the notice. We know that's kind of hit and miss. Apparently, YouTube has their own little weird rules. What a shocker! That they don't always notify people of an event, and there's a limit to the number of times they will do it. So beware that you're gonna have to.
Well, as long as I have this, I mean, I did get my notice. I mean, I should get notice. But as long as I have this, pretty handy today, Michael. We'll talk about it later on.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so
I even have, and I just want to, I even have my own card. Look. I don't have my mug, but I have a card, and I have a little.
Don't get me started on that mug thing with the Sheila mug that still sits here after traveling the world apparently, and coming right back to me. And I was going to take it tomorrow and fight the post office, as I mentioned yesterday. But now tomorrow I'm going to be going back to Penny because they haven't quite gotten to verdict yet. So you want to start with that? What do you want to start with?
Yeah, let's start with that because you have been you've been in the courtroom with the Daniel Penny trial. You have a press credential. I don't know if you have it right there.
No, I lost it somewhere. No, I'll find it.
No, but you'll find
this is classic. Wait, let me tell you, this is classic. I get the credential, and it has an expiration date on it. Now, this is it's for the event. How do they know? So the expiration is December 2nd. That's not today or yesterday. So of course, security, has to move me aside. Hey, it's expired. I said the trial's still ongoing. Make a call. So they figured it out, and I checked with the bailiffs on the way out. I said, I don't want to have the same problem tomorrow. It's still going to be December 2nd on my credential. Are we good? Anyway, so yeah, lots going on in there today to give us that wacky insight into what the jury might be thinking or not thinking. Again,
well,
Daniel Penny.
For those who don't know, tell us about the background of this case. Some people may not be following it.
Sure. Daniel Penny, the former Marine accused of manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide in the death of Jordan Neely. It happened back in May of 2023. He's on the subway. Mr. Neely comes on board, actually to the point where it's like he sticks his hand in to stop the doors from closing. You know how you do that? Which can be dangerous on the subway. It's not like an elevator. Sometimes it'll chop your arm right off. So anyway, he gets on the subway, and he's immediately threatening people. He's, and I say threatening in the sense that it's generic. Like, I don't care if I go to prison for the rest of my life and if I have to, kill somebody. So it's not very specific to one person, but it's pretty extreme. Takes his jacket, throws it down violently on the ground and gets in people's faces. That's when Mr. Penny steps in, puts him in the chokehold and takes him to the ground immediately. And he's holding that chokehold while Mr. Neely is both resisting and then passive and then resisting and then passive. Until 5 minutes, 53 seconds passes, and then Mr. Neely passes. So now the two charges are, as mentioned, manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. Top charge, 15 years max. Bottom charge, 4 years max. And the jury has had the case now for, they didn't have it very long yesterday, maybe 2 hours. And then today, I don't have the official clock, but I'm just rounding up here. Probably now a total of 7 hours. Something like that. And they've been asking for things along the way. This morning, there was also a little bit of a side note here. There was a protester that has been outside the courthouse regularly and making himself and his cause known. He actually also has come into the courtroom as part of the public. And so there was some effort by the defense team to have him removed from the courtroom, knowing the disruption that he has caused outside the courtroom. I don't think that was granted, but the point was made. And this guy has an agenda, and he hasn't been yelling or screaming in court, but certainly has been very loud out in the street. And you can hear it in the courtroom. That's the bottom line. You can hear these protesters on the street on the 13th floor. We're in.
That's New York's problem, though. I mean, you're allowed to protest. I mean,
of course you are.
Protesters who are Trump, they went to trial, everything. They keep them to the park, usually on the other side. I mean, so that's our First Amendment right. So as long as they're not disrupting the court.
On the defense, I'm making that point because it's just another note for appeal. If down the road you haven't waived that issue. So anyway, so that happened early on, and then the jury wanted to see a couple of things. They wanted to see the Penny interview with the cops. Remember, this was done voluntarily and before he knew and was not advised that Mr. Neely had died. So they once
Although
that
there was some indication that he probably figured that out,
well, that's all
right?
your supposition. I don't know.
No,
I don't
I know there was some indication that maybe he figured out. That's all I read.
not
I read what,
it was not made known to him.
right.
Mr. Penny, you realize the guy you had a chokehold on has died, correct? I mean, that never took place. So whether he knew it, suspected it, no clue,
Right.
because he didn't take the stand, and because they didn't address it in this interview, no clue. And they also wanted to see the famous Vasquez video, which I call the Zapruder film of this particular case. Everybody knows Zapruder from JFK assassination, so it's been looked at ad nauseum. This is he was a rider, but then he stepped out, and most of the video comes from outside the train, shooting through the window into the train, and you can very graphically see this tussle taking place, which ultimately ends with the death of Mr. Neely. So that was this morning. They got that done. Went to lunch. I hear it was a working lunch that they brought in some fabulous food, I'm sure. And then they got back at it, and it was about. I had my notes here. We got back into the courtroom at about 2:30, almost exactly. And at 3:09, the jury had another question. And it was hard to tell at first whether it was a question or whether it was a verdict. It was very hush hush. And we missed any of the interaction between, here's the jury giving the question to the judge, who then looks at it and then gives it to the parties, and then they put their heads together. We kind of missed that part. It was done before we were let back in, or it was done back in chambers. It's unclear. But the parties looked at it and tried to figure out what the question was. It had to do with the testimony of Dr. Cynthia Harris, who was the medical examiner, not just the prosecution's quote expert, but the one who did the actual autopsy. She testified, was basically the last witness for the prosecution. Their question was about cross-examination of her by the defense as it related to a statement she made saying, and this point is just kind of a paraphrase, that there was nothing she might have learned that would change her opinion. No facts would change her opinion, because, as you know, defense attorneys like to say, well, what if this? Well, what about that? Would this change your opinion? What about this? And the hypotheticals involved, fentanyl. What if you learned there was fentanyl? What if a test meant there was some other drug? Would that change your opinion? No, nothing. Her bottom line opinion was, I don't care what was in his system. And as they read back the transcript of her testimony, she even said if he had come on the train with so much fentanyl you could, in theory, kill somebody, that wouldn't change her opinion. That his death was caused by the chokehold. Very important to this jury.
That's because the theory is that you just don't die suddenly from drugs. I mean, you kind of it takes a little bit to get in the system. You go to sleep, you fall asleep, you die, and then you die. So that's the theory. I don't know if she explained that.
Well, she did. She did over some time, but it was more combative in cross-examination when she was suggesting that I don't care what it was, here's how he died. I don't care. No effect, here's how he died. So if we look back at the questions from earlier today, it seems to me they were focusing on not to causation as much as the mechanics, of the chokehold, how long it might have been in place, whether Penny would have known that Neely was suffering and therefore should have released the chokehold. That's what I was getting from those questions. These more recent questions in the readback of the testimony, and that's how they ended the day, reading back this testimony. It was more
did the question have to be clarified at all? Or?
Well, yeah, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, it was confusing because they had a very specific phrase that the jury seemed to recall, but when they did the word search, the court reporter did the word search, they couldn't find that phrase. And the phrase had to do with facts that may or may not have changed her opinion. And so they asked the jury to go back, refine their question. They did so. They found the transcript they were looking for. And it was basically about an hour of cross-examination. And they began that at 4:15 and stopped at 5, and they'll pick it up again first thing in the morning before the jury goes back to continue deliberating. But if you look at that testimony and you look at their questions, first of all, the cross, I think that's important that it's the cross, because it seems they're testing this Emmy's theories and opinions to find out if she's credible. They're wanting to know, what, if anything, might change her opinion, and why wouldn't it? change her opinion, and is that legitimate? So that's where it stands right now.
All right, so you always have a theory that when they ask a question, and it seems to have been borne out in YSL, which we're going to discuss a little bit later on, that it's usually one person on the jury, one juror, who has the question. With that in mind, if that's the case here, how does that affect what you think is happening in that jury room? And read those tea leaves.
Yeah, obviously we know nothing because we're not in the room. But yeah, my experience suggests that it's always one, maybe two people that are needing persuasion. And it's on whatever the issue may be. In this case, if the issue is, okay, if this doctor's opinion can be attacked in any way, maybe it's because she is so absolute about what she thinks the cause of death is. Because you got to compare it to the defense expert, who, of course, has given many alternate possible causes of death: the drugs, heart arrhythmia as a result of sickle cell traits, all of those things. So they're certainly weighing that. But again, to your point, yeah, I think it's always one or two people that need to be just convinced. And I think that's where this is. I don't think it's any different. Hey, let's show you a picture of, for those who, I say picture. Both the courtroom artists were hard at work today, had their binoculars going so they could see who was where. But this, of course, is one of the drawings. I can't remember. I apologize. I can't remember which. This is
Christine Cornell.
Yeah, this is the doctor. This is Dr. Harris. She looks so sad in this drawing. Doesn't she look sad? Maybe it was during cross-examination that this was drawn, and she looks so sad. So anyway, that's her. She's the star at the moment. And as I X'd out, and anytime we see these readbacks, it is like Masterpiece Theater. It's, you got people playing the roles. They put, I think it's the clerk is playing the role of the doctor, and so she's in the witness box. And then I believe it may be one of the defense team, but I don't think so. I think it's another court personnel that is doing the Q&A and basically playing the part of the attorney asking the questions. So they're just reading the transcript, and it's always fun to see how much they put into it. How much drama they put into it. And as I X'd out earlier, I've seen worse. I've definitely seen worse. They're giving it their best to put a little something into the readback, because it's pretty dry. It's a readback. So
yeah, it's a readback of a transcript, right?
Yes, and a lot of it relates to medical testimony and opinions, so that could be really ultra dry. So.
Yeah. I assume
that's where they are.
The defense attorneys. I assume not the defense attorney doing the readback, because I'm sure the prosecution would object to that.
That you would think, and it would also be better. I mean, the presentation would be better. I would think.
Well, when readbacks sometimes occur with depositions, not just trial testimony. When you have a case, somebody's been deposed before, and with the questions and answers, and a lot of times us defense lawyers hire actors to do the readbacks, or we put a member of our team up there, and you can add by inflection, "You really said that?" "Oh, yes, I did." And it's totally different than how the transcript came across, right? So
help me remember. There was a case not too long ago where they actually had law students play the roles, and I don't know if it was the Durst case.
It was Durst. It was Durst.
Was it in Durst?
I think it was Robert Durst in California. Yeah, I think there was Robert Durst in California. Right. A couple years back, play it. So no, it can be, and then they're like, and like, really? Oh, that was really great. So yeah. But this was, you did put in your post on Twitter, your former Twitter, Twitter. Masterpiece Theater.
Yes, I always call it Masterpiece Theater, and I gave them credit. I said I've seen worse. Hey, something we forgot to do yesterday, and now I'm thinking about it and trying to make sure I don't forget.
Yes, we forgot to do it, and we apologize, and we wanted to do it when we started the show, but we thought the Daniel Penny update was very important. But we know this is probably even more important to the person.
So now I have to find it. Now I'm on the pressure. I got the pressure. I'm trying to find it here. So. Bear with me for just a moment.
It was. Why don't you mention what it is as you're?
Well, yeah, it was one of our members was nice enough to buy or
memberships.
Yeah, memberships for others, and so how we missed that. Well, I know how we missed it because we're kind of going crazy here. So let's try to at least let me see if I can resurrect that. Here we go. I think I got it. Let's see how much of it works out here. There we go. There we go.
There we go.
Gifted 5 Justice of memberships. So thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate that.
And we apologize to Catnot Williams. If Catnot Williams shows up tonight, we will put that back on. She's probably like mad at us because this was such a nice thing to do. And we did see that there were new members. So again, you subscribe, like, share, notify, join, be a member. Last month, the members got a treat. They got 3 or 4 days in advance of seeing Michael Bryant overseas doing crime stories at various places and various little criminal acts. Did you know that other places had crime? I mean, it was
hard to believe. Yeah, hard to believe.
It was hard to believe, especially after the day here in New York. But that's okay. I digress, and I get ahead of myself. Okay, but no, that was great. So we'll be doing that, and then I think we have some other stuff we have to do because we have different tiers of membership, right? And I know we did something for main members, and then we have other tiers that we have to do something for some other members this month, and we're working on it. We're just a little slow because we're new to it, and we kind of jumped the gun, but we'll get there. We'll catch up, to it. And it wasn't Cole coming over and cooking your turkeys because that you would not want. Let me tell you, So
no good.
But we're good. All right. So where are we then? What is there left? What's the jury look like when they come out? Can you see?
Everybody.
Remind us how many men, how many women were the alternates brought back in to sit with the jurors? I mean,
that's a good question. I mean, the alts. I was not there during voir dire where they may or may not have been identified, but it's still a 16 pack, 8 and 8, right? And so obviously 4 of those folks are alts, but they haven't been identified to anybody in the gallery. And they're still in their same seats. I mentioned today the older lady she had the fedora today, and there's kind of a guy that's always seemed kind of bored to me, younger guy. But other than that, I'm not picking up any sort of vibes about, I'm over this, or this guy, deserves whatever he gets, or why is he here? No, it's not that overt. So, they're just doing their thing. They're doing their job. I do think because of the way these questions and requests for evidence have been kind of narrowed and tailored as they've moved forward, that tomorrow, maybe even before lunch, maybe it's a sleep on it. They're going to get the last 15 minutes of that readback. Then they're going to go back and argue about that. And again, it is clearly a cause of death question. And that may be what they need to put them over the top. So
let me ask you this. We thought that maybe the cause of death didn't matter, right? That was the analysis, because if they found that he was operating within saving others, right? Self-defense of others, that quite frankly, the cause of death didn't matter at that point, because if it's self-defense of others, why do you even, it could be a chokehold, it could be anything, as long as it was justified for the defense of others. But if they're on the cause of death, it sounds like that they're intertwining the two, that if the cause of death is a chokehold and it's an excessive chokehold, that maybe that can't be self-defense of others, but if it's,
and then maybe that negates the justification, because his excessive use negates the justification. He's justified up to the point where he exceeded whatever they believe was justified. And it's such a nebulous concept. It's one of those things, you kind of get it, you kind of feel it. Everybody has their own barometer for that. And they're going to think, if I were in that car, because that's the key. You got to put this jury in that car. They've got to feel what everybody felt in that subway car that day when Mr. Neely was. If you're
the defense.
Of course, yeah, of course. Well, the prosecution does the same thing, but they make it sound like, well, what's the big deal? This is not unusual for New York. You guys who've been in subway cars, and we know everybody on that jury has had some experience with subway cars. So you're either saying, yeah, you're in that car, so what? Or you're saying for the defense, you're in that car and you're frightened for your life. It's the picture painted most vividly that's going to carry the day, I think.
And I can't wait to discuss what happened in New York and to relate to that. But there were 2 charges, right? There's a manslaughter charge, which carries a 15-year penalty, and that's recklessness, complete recklessness. And then there's a criminal negligence charge, which is basically negligence, right? And that
Yeah.
carries a 4-year penalty, likely no jail time. And then there's a not guilty, or there could be a hung. Do you feel just in your bones, you feel that this could possibly be hung, or are they still trying to work right through what is going on? They're trying to work right through the facts, because again, you're the one in that, sometimes when you're in that courtroom, you get that feel, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get the feeling they're working on it, that they're not wringing their hands, they're not giving up. I mean, they've had consistent questions and requests for evidence. They haven't been deliberating that long, and they've already asked some very specific questions and asked for some very specific evidence. So now, at this point, to me, a hung jury is not likely. Now, if we hear nothing until the end of the day tomorrow, maybe I changed my opinion. But as it lays out right now, I think they're just plodding through stuff. And, the majority is trying to convince the minority. That's usually the way it works.
Yeah. And you're going to go back tomorrow. You'll be back in New York
I'll go
City.
back tomorrow. I'm going to go in real early tomorrow because I want to get a spot. And it's, let me just rag on the, maybe they'll take my credential away, but it's really not very well operated here. Where can you see a case of this high profile? And I've talked to folks who've been covering, the courts there in Manhattan for many more years than I have, where you don't have an overflow room. No overflow room, either on the floor. We're on the 13th floor. Maybe that's why we're like in room 1313. I mean, we're cursed. So, I mean, there's just no overflow room either on that floor or above or below. It's bizarre. And so you have both public and media shut out if they're not queued up properly.
Yeah. But you know what? They probably decided not to do that based on the amount of people asking for press credentials. That would be my guess. And found that maybe there wasn't that many people asking for press credentials, therefore they didn't need an overflow room.
Well,
that's, now we get the little verdict.
You give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess, because obviously, and I've seen a ton of folks there every day. So unless they got those last minute, when I first applied for ours, I asked that question: do you guys have an overflow? I know we're not thinking we're going to do that. Okay, so either they got a massive rush after the fact and weren't planning for it, or they just said we're not doing it for whatever reason. But they ain't doing it, and it's a big courtroom. But still, when you take the participants and their support teams, you're getting about 25 press, 25 public. That's not very much.
That's not very much. But thank you for being there, because I know you're going to go back. You're going to get there early. You've been in court most days, except when you were doing our Justice Served TV, trying to find crimes overseas for us, because we have so many overseas people that watch us right now. Right? Matter of fact, I just saw somebody from Ireland, right? Please tell the 3 jurors, yes, we saw the interviews. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but after we talk about one other case. And yes, we did see those interviews, and yes, they were absolutely amazing. But you know what? You all were pretty amazing, because all of you who discussed YSL with us over the past many months, the points the jurors were making were the points you were making. So it was like, yeah, we have really responsible, terrific, wonderful Justice Served TV viewers here, Michael Bryant.
It's funny because as we watch any trial unfold, you wonder if the jury's getting it. If we on the outside are seeing the things they're seeing and vice versa. At least with this case, they saw the same things we did: incompetent prosecution, likable defense attorneys, crazy theories by the prosecution. All of those things, people that we've talked about all along, the jury seems to have been thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and before we get to that, the point you made about New Yorkers, let's talk about that. All right, so I am right here in Midtown. My office, my home is right here in Midtown. And by the way, what's on these kicks? Well, that's going to be related to YSL, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It has to do with one of the guests we hope to get on soon. They're Converse kicks. They're Marvel comic. They're Wonder Woman. They're Batman. They're Robin. They're heroes, right? Okay. Why does Catwoman want to steal cats? I don't know the answer to that, but that's what these are. They were limited edition, put out a few years ago, and of course I have them. But it's because, and you'll know because the court reporter in YSL who was wearing Converse kicks. She's all the time in it. But before we do that, so I wake up this morning and I hear sirens and helicopters, and of course today is the day the tree is being lit. As a matter of fact, in about 5 minutes the ceremony will start, if I believe, And the Rockefeller Center tree is going to be living. There'll be millions of people. There'll be thousands and thousands and thousands of people just crashed into Rock Center down the road, a few blocks from me. So you figure it's related to that, but no, it's New York. Of course, it's not related to that. Right a block away on the side street of the Hilton, on the side street, 54th Street, where I walk to be the poodle all the time. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know Tubi. He's around all the time. If you were listening before, he was trying to get in, barking. There was an assassination. It was unbelievable. 6:44 in the morning. The head of United Healthcare was literally assassinated by a very stone cold hit person who there was somebody on the street that was kind of like, maybe a little tipsy, walked out. There was a person to the right against the wall having a cigarette and a cup of coffee, walks right up. Somebody walks past him in a blue jacket. It turns out to be the head, Mr. Bishop of United Healthcare, the CEO, and the person is waiting there. The assassin kills him.
Brian
shots,
Thompson. Brian Thompson was the CEO.
It's Brian Thompson. Okay.
And we don't know if it was an assassin, but it looks like a hit.
Well, it's an assassin, even if it's not a professional hit job, right?
I suppose.
Yeah,
He was. Yeah, he was. It was a cold-blooded killing. Yes,
yeah,
whether for hire or some other purpose. Yeah. Should we show that video? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, let's show the video because I went out to the scene. Let's look.
Okay.
Or you want to look at the assassination first? You want to look at the hit?
Yeah, let's do that. Just, for the two people maybe that haven't seen it, I have a feeling that most people have seen some version of it, and it's pretty. It's in your face. It looks almost like from TV because it is so obvious what is happening. So here we go. So there you see Mr. Thompson just walking along in his blue suit, and this guy, this ice cold guy in his hoodie with his gray backpack, fires. Let's say so. There you see this guy. He's just walking along. He has no clue what is about to happen. And look at this guy with a gun that apparently looks to have a silencer of some sort on it, right?
Yeah, it's got a suppressor on it, right?
And it's boom once and then boom a second time. And as I recall, the police report says there were 2 gunshot wounds, correct?
That's what we understand. That's what
so here told. You see, right. He looks like he's not he's aiming at him again.
Yeah, kind of manually had to manually re-rack the gun. It looked like it jammed.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. Let's take a look at that part. That's right here. He looks like he's doing something to get it to function again, and then he takes aim again. I think it's unclear whether Mr. Thompson was hit a third time or not. So watch what happens next as this cold-blooded killer has done his job. Again, whether for hire or not, we don't know at this point. He just
I think he's for hire. He leaves the person.
Kind of crosses the street, and there he goes.
Right near, very, very casual, not running. He walks to 55th Street, makes a right turn, goes down to 6th, which is like 4 steps. You'll see it from my video when we do it. Gets on a bicycle, goes to Central Park where my dog is being walked, of course, to be the poodle, and he is gone. Now, I would say to you, Michael, he looks like a professional assassin to me. He almost looks like a former Marine. He's really cold. He's careful. He knows what he's doing. He casually walks away. He doesn't seem to have any emotion, doesn't want to kill any witnesses. He only wants to kill the person that's right there. Now, this is a little bit different than Neely, but my point is that it's sometimes the coldness can get to people about how there is a reaction. And when you look at him, it looked like a TV hit job to me. I don't know about
it really
you,
did. Straight, curly, wavy. I walk by there every morning. Yeah.
I do too. I walk by there, and tomorrow I'll be walking by there. Well, if it's open to cut through and to go to an appointment.
Right by. Is it the Hilton? The Hilton is
right
there.
Hilton,
is that the
right at the Hilton. Right. People
this is not. This ain't the hood. This
is like we are literally. The tree is being lit at 48th and between 5th and 6th. The tree's more on 6th than it is on 5th. We're literally right there at 54 and 6. So we're 6 blocks. We're right in Midtown. If you go down to 5th Avenue, which is 1 block, all the stores are there, all the big department stores. There was definitely. And then I came to learn that he is under investigation by the DOJ for fraud. Okay. And you know what happens when people are under investigation for massive amounts of money? Because at first you would think, well, maybe it's, he pissed off somebody's husband, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind, love, and all.
And there are some lawsuits as well. And I was trying to figure out, okay, how does that factor into a motivation for, let's say, somebody to hire a hitman or somebody to be motivated to take this guy out? It doesn't square with me, because it's like he's going to be facing justice because he's going to be facing some level of justice, either the Justice Department criminally, lawsuits, financially. It's not like he's getting away with anything at this point. So I just think somebody being hired to take him out or being motivated to take him out, it's premature, it seems to me. He hasn't gotten away with anything.
I like walk through girl sin, okay? I think that the Justice Department is pressuring him to snitch on other people when you have millions upon millions and maybe billions of dollars here. And it turns out, United Healthcare, which is my healthcare.
They Jeffrey Epstein the guy? They gave him the Epstein treatment?
Or whatever. But yes, he will. He actually was under investigation as being one of insider trading, believe it or not. So that's another.
And he was
aspect.
in town for a big merger with United Healthcare and some other subsidiaries.
To discuss the annual meeting, to discuss it at the annual meeting. That's where he was going. That's where he was going. He was staying across the street. So he just walked across the street. So the person had to know he was going to be there. They had to know which door of the Hilton he was going to go. They had to know when he was going to go, right? So this was a well planned out operation, almost like a military operation. I wonder where the bicycle came from. Somebody identified the backpack, which is very new and it costs $300. It's like a photographer's backpack, which means it's padded. It prevents things from, that's all it really means. It prevents things from getting racked around and hit and all that kind of stuff. But so thanks for using AI to deny claims. Yeah, apparently this involved my United Healthcare and also United Healthcare's Medicare division too, and how they were.
I have United Healthcare. I just thought about that. I have that.
Okay. Well, guess what? You could have.
My premiums are going up. I can account for my whereabouts. I can account for my whereabouts. Wasn't
there was a lot of people some people under investigation, but he's the CEO and he's the big guy. Now it's kind of interesting because as you have to get a warrant to search a victim's house or room, even though they're a victim. And they got a warrant to search his room. I think it was at the Marriott, which is about a block away or so across the street. And God knows what they'll find there too, but there had to be somebody knew where he was. So that's how I woke up this morning in New York. And so when you talk about Daniel Penny and you say, well, it's New York, it is New York. And that's why people are used to having, like, I hate to say it, but people that have psychiatric meltdowns on the subway. I mean, we are the famous case of Bernard Goetz. He felt so bad years ago that he shot 3 people but they had like weapons. Penny didn't have a weapon.
And there's been a lot of discussion too about remember the I think it was Navy SEALs. They were on that train in France, and it was a terror attempt. They had guns, and AK-47s. But these guys stepped up and took them down. And he's been very vocal. He's also a politician in Oregon. I think just recently elected to the House of Representatives from Oregon, and he's been very vocal about, hey, if Penny is convicted of anything, all hell's going to break loose because nobody will ever step up again. They'll be afraid to do that, and that's the argument.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the
I
argument.
know you don't know. I know you disagree with that.
No,
I know you do.
No, but we're having this discussion because the jury's having this discussion.
There's a chilling effect of somebody that's punished for stepping up. Did Mr. Penny go too far? That's what the jury's deciding. They're not deciding whether or not he was wrong to step up and help. I don't think that's the issue. The issue is, did he go too far? That's the issue.
How many times, juror number 2, do people take down somebody on a plane? They don't kill them. That's the
well, we know, and there's no, to make clear, there's no evidence, and nobody is arguing, prosecution or otherwise, there was an intent to kill him. So it's either a recklessness or a
Right. You're right.
negligence.
Yeah.
And that's it's a tough one. I think if these jurors went into this case with that kind of, hey, it's just New York, it's just the subway here, come on, calm down, then he's going to get convicted of something. There's
Right.
no doubt.
My feeling is it's either criminal negligence or not guilty. I mean, that's my feeling.
Yeah,
That's
I've been reported as saying, I tried to post that New York Sun article that included some quotes from me, but the key to me was that very divisive case, and so a compromise verdict on the lesser charge is not out of the question. It's also not out of the question that because he's got no priors, he could just get probation.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting case, and we're going to continue to follow because we do think it is an interesting case and a very important case.
What do you
Now,
think about
going
before we
back-
move on? Before we move on, I'm sorry. What do you think about the race element that the prosecution is attempting to inject into this case?
Well,
Is there a race element?
there may be a subliminal race element because they said he was acting like a crackhead. People say crackhead. Use crackhead.
Can't be a white crackhead.
Yeah, but they use it to say black. That's
They
that's
do.
just the mindset.
I did not know that.
No,
You New Yorkers, I don't know.
Us New Yorkers,
Okay.
we just have a different view on things. So yes, do you want safety? Absolutely. Do you think that New York people in the New York subway don't want safety? Of course they want the safety. But maybe if we deploy our resources properly, I mean, wasn't that what this part of this election was about? And take care of things that matter to everyday people, we wouldn't have to be in these issues right now, no matter what. That's a different issue. That's a whole different issue about whether or not he's going to be found guilty or not guilty of this matter, and whether or not.
I just hope that the jury doesn't weigh that as a very important factor in the case. It may be subliminal. It may be a nugget. It shouldn't rule the day, though. So
yeah, and someone makes a point. Absolutely, Walkthrough Girl said, when crack. The reason why there was such an attack on the crack penalties is because it always applied to black people because it was cheap, and if you were a white kid in college, it applied to cocaine. So I think that has been in the kind of in the culture. But let's just go back to the killing. Do you have any of the videos of me at the scene today of the homicide?
What happened to that? Did you post that? I don't know.
I posted them on my Twitter. Okay, there I sent them to you, but you were a little busy in the courtroom. But if you go to my Twitter account, which is at Kenny Baden, KENNEYBADEN. In my Twitter, I posted 4 videos there. Okay, I posted 4 videos there. The one was actually approaching to show you on New York on 6th Avenue where there was this homicide. People are beeping horns and they're almost getting into accidents and all. Nothing was changed. I posted coming around the corner. You saw the police cars, all the news media, and people are like, why can't I get down there and park in the parking garage? And people are being dropped off with their luggage. They're going under the crime scene tape, right? To go into the Hilton under their luggage.
Check in. Check in here.
I posted about the scene, what happened, and then I posted coming back to see that again. It was just a day as usual in New York. It was unbelievable.
Okay. So where can people find that stuff? Since I wasn't able to pull that off, where can people find it?
Go to my Twitter account at Kenny, KENNEY, Baden, BADEN. Kenny Baden. My name,
Check that out. And I'll try and pull those off, and maybe we can post them as a separate little chunks.
Chunks and all. And just 4 of them. And there was actually 5 of them, but I had a little problem with my microphone, but
technical difficulties.
I had a technical difficulty, but we worked it out. Anyhow, so yes, that's what we are. So we're going to go to YSL next, but we want to announce we have some really special guests tomorrow night. And Michael Bryant, I will let you do the honors and tell everybody who they are. And the time change tomorrow night will be 6 o'clock that will be on because we've been a little bit.
We're gonna do that. I believe we're going to have a full hour with these folks. That's what we're talking about. I don't know if you'll remember these names or not. Maybe you will if you follow the case. Max Shart, does that name ring a bell at all?
Come on, people watching. Max Shart,
Shannon Stillwell's attorney. And Mr. Kokomo is going to join.
So as I said to Michael Bryan, when I gave him the thing, I said, tomorrow night we're going to have, for all of you who've been watching, a fine show.
Okay, tell me, what's that mean again? What is that?
Remember fine, when people are fine,
I remember something's fine. I remember that.
Yeah,
and so you're just throwing that old reference out?
It had to do when Shannon Stillwell and his tats, his ink body were being shown, and our chat of like 500 people went crazy about being fine.
Somebody looked fine.
I got you. Right? You
I
know,
got you. And it wasn't in a sexist way or anything. No,
it
it
wasn't
was
in a
not.
sexist way at all. But so we're gonna have a fine show
Yes,
tomorrow
so that'll
night.
be tomorrow night. That'll be 6 o'clock. Here's my hope. This is what I'm
Yes.
hoping for. In the perfect world, we get a verdict in Penny at or about lunchtime, so I can jam back, get all that stuff organized, and then we're ready to go at 6 o'clock. Because if they drag on, that's not going to help me. So these jury members really got to give me a break and do their
because
thing
you
and
got to
get it
come
done
back
early.
here and you have to come back here and do the show. So let's talk about what we learned from the jurors. Let's see. There's juror 56 spoke a little bit to Max Seiden. We discussed him a little bit last night. Then we had 3 jurors, 2 alternates, and 1 regular jury who spoke to I see eye candy. Shaq Kokomo. Is that what he's being called right now?
Yeah, I know
That's how
what
he
his
is.
first name
That's on
really
his
is.
Twitter. That's on his
Is it
Twitter account. Shaq Kokomo.
that his real first name?
Shaq Kokomo. I have no idea. I don't get paid. Oh, wait a second. Here comes drama. I say the show is going off the rails. Hot, man. All right. Everyone's singing down. Shaka's eye candy. Okay, we'll have to tell him. Is Shaquille's real name Becky?
His first name?
I
always thought the last name was fake.
Yeah, because all we kept hearing the whole time, he was the one who could run everything.
He was the tech guy. And generally people know the story that he was represented by Max Sharp when Max Sharp was a public defender. And he kind of took a liking to the kid, and the kid is now, looks at Max as his mentor, and he's going to be an attorney. So it's a great story. So we'll have both, the YSL angle and also this little side story, which I think is great.
Yeah. This is absolutely great. So let's just do what our viewers would like to do. They want to talk about this. So so we had a young UVEG male who interviewed the jurors last night, right?
Is that the little clip we have here? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to show you a small clip because we want to do a lot of clips tonight, but we think we want to save some of them for tomorrow night when Mr. Short, Attorney Short, and Mr. Kokomo are on. So let's do just a little tiny clip and let's talk about it.
Okay.
He worked, and I was like, I mean, y'all completely acted like we just didn't see it. Like, do y'all think that we're like stupid? Like, I was almost insulted. Like, you guys didn't even bring up that this car even existed. The only thing that he had said was that, oh, that car did a U-turn, and I found that suspicious because they must have said something. But then you completely forget about the car that was right in front of it. Like, I didn't like that.
Okay. So, and let me point out to Becky, and I don't have confirmation on either of these things. I've only been told a couple of items that he worked with the PD, he worked with Max in the public defender's office, and that's when he kind of became enamored with the process. So we'll find out tomorrow. That's what we'll do. We'll find out tomorrow.
We're gonna ask the source, right?
So those jurors are talking about that video where the third car seemed to have just disappeared, not be of interest to the prosecution, and they really never even talked about it. And these jurors were saying, how stupid do they think we are that we would just ignore that because they ignored it?
Right. They thought that. They thought the prosecution, it's my word, disrespect. They thought they made a joke by dressing up in red and then all red and all green at one time, right? They thought that was ridiculous, that was made like a comedy, like this is a joke. Remember, we talked about that. All of our viewers talked about that. They thought that Ms. Love, they discounted her early on, everyone. They actually complained to the bailiff that her facial mannerisms and her judge,
she was very demonstrative.
Yeah, well, a lot of us are in the courtroom.
That's true. That's not always a bad thing.
No, but it depends on how you have to kind of read the room, and the jurors didn't like that. I mean, they were there for a year, right? Yes, I thought it was a great interviews, letting the jurors talk. We got an insight, and it was confirmed by juror 71 today, who talked to one of the reporters for the AJC, and we had the walkthrough. Girlson says the jurors hated Love as much as most viewers hated her.
Yeah, it's we say it all the time. She is unlikable, and some people are just out of touch with how they are perceived by other people. I don't know how to explain it other than that. How can you be that arrogant and that flippant and feel that people are going to embrace you? I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
No, I don't edit. So anyhow, so that was some of the things, and there was some other things. But the car, it just was everything. It was everything that we had been talking about and saying.
And
What the hell
Vivarito,
are they doing?
remember
And Vivarito,
was
the
a star.
burrito. They
She
hated
was,
her.
of course they hated her.
Yeah.
And she was caught by Max Shart and by Doug Weinstein in not lies exactly, but just to say molding what she found to fit her story, even when it made no sense. And the jury saw right through that.
And they didn't like any of the gang experts, right? They just didn't like any of the gang experts. And you're right, you reminded me that it was disrespect. They felt that she was disrespectful, that Love didn't go back to speak to any of the jurors. But
Yeah.
it's your
Somebody
case.
I saw online, somebody put together a meme of some sort saying, here's Hilton and Love after the verdict is read. And it was some guys running like crazy across a field, trying to get away from wherever they were. I just suggested
Except
they went to the
Hilton.
nearest bar, but
Yeah.
maybe they did just run down the street.
No, Hilton came back and talked to them, though. Hilton did come back and speak to them. And they had an interesting take on Hilton in the sense that they felt that her screaming at them was ridiculous. And one of the jurors has a daughter who is going to become a lawyer, and she told her to watch this video because not what you should be doing, right? You shouldn't be screaming at us like this. But they felt that she had been put in an untenable position and was there to clean up the mess. But they thought that she was speaking to them like she thought like a black woman should speak to other black women, and they didn't like that. That's disrespectful. That's condescending. These are very educated women, very educated jurors, and they don't need to be condescended to. And so I thought, that was really that. Now, the one interesting thing they did say is they didn't think there was enough evidence to convict Jeffrey Williams, a young thug, right? That was a big revelation because that's, they kind of forced, the state forced Williams into taking this plea to get out of Rice Street so he didn't get killed.
Right.
They thought that they didn't like that. They thought that people were collateral damage. And this is a great point on the criminal justice system, that the state was out to get the big guy, right? They were out to get the big guy, Jeffrey Williams, young thug, and that everybody else was forced into taking pleas and forced to go to Rice Street and forced into being demeaned and all to get Jeffrey Williams. And they were, as they called it, collateral damage, Michael.
Yeah. It's brutal. And that kind of insight is so important. I was looking for something we didn't get to yesterday. It was an interesting clip. I thought, I can't seem to find it, of course. If I do, I'll pop it out there. But it was a quick bite from Jeffrey Williams' dad on the courthouse steps, or as he's known, Big Jim. Let me see if I can find Big Jim here, because I just think it was, because put yourself in his position. His son, who is the target defendant, no doubt, takes a deal because he is being, tortured at Cobb County Jail, and he just can't take it anymore. And now here you have the two remaining defendants, one getting off completely and the other, getting off with the proverbial slap on the wrist. And now your son, who, he's out, but he's got a pretty healthy, probation condition or 2 or 3, as we've talked about in some detail. And maybe if he'd hung in there, maybe he'd be able to walk like everybody else.
Yeah.
I said Jim. It's actually Big Jeff. Sorry, here's Big Jeff.
No, I ain't no regrets. No regrets. You know what I'm saying? He did what he felt like he wanted to do. So he's grown. He made his own decision.
Have you spoken to him since this happened?
Yeah.
If so, what was his reaction to today's verdict?
Today? No, I haven't spoken to him today.
How is he doing?
He's doing great. Honestly, he's doing great. So he don't have a worry. We still fight. We still fighting out as well. It's not over for us.
What do you mean it's not over for you guys?
It's not over for us because I got another son and a grandson that was arrested about this case that I'm still fighting for.
Winfrey, you've been an outspoken critic of Fulton County DA's office. In light of today's verdict, I got a message for that?
I still feel the same way about the DA office. It's a piece of shit.
Oh, whoa. Okay,
So,
tell us how you really feel.
Just offhand comment there from Big Jeff, but I thought that was interesting. I saw a note. Somebody said, "I can't believe there's another plea deal for Fani Willis today." We have that. Should we look at that? This is
Yeah, one thing I want to say before you get to
yeah.
that, though, one thing I wanted to say, they thought, the jurors also thought, that the prosecution proved that Jeffrey Williams was a nice guy, that he had done a lot for the community. They thought that that was the proofs that they had, that he was a nice guy and done a lot for the community. Amazing.
Yeah, you just wonder. Again, I'm constantly wondering what the thought process was. I'm confused. I just don't understand it. Okay, so this is. Remember, we talked yesterday a lot about the remaining defendants. Where are we going? What's going to happen? They herded a bunch of them into the courtroom where we couldn't see them because they were in their jail togs, and so there was no on-camera presence. These are all innocent guys until proven guilty, so it's kind of prejudicial to see them in the jailhouse. Where one of the guys did take a deal today, and there will be another opportunity or more. I think it's what's the deadline? December 13th for the new plea deals to be offered to any remaining defendants.
Right.
This is Jimmy Winfrey. You may know him, LKB, as Pee Wee or as Roscoe. So he was up for counts 1, which is the RICO count, 24, 25, 26. And so he got in, which were possession or I think one was a felony in possession criminal count. So he took a deal today. Let's watch a little of his performance.
22 SC 183572, counts 1, 24, 25, and just for your honor verification, the state will be dismissing count 26.
Okay. And I don't actually have a copy of the indictment in front of me. Thank you.
Check out how he spells his name out for the court reporter.
You'll raise your right hand. You solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh.
Can you state your true, correct, and legal name for the record, sir?
Jimmy, J as in jam, I as in igloo, M as in money, M as in multi, and Y as in young. Middle name Carlton. C is in currency, A is in Atlanta, R is in rich, L is in long, T is in Tommy, O is in options, N is in Nancy. The last name is Winfrey, W is in win, I is in incomplete, N is in Nancy, F is in free, R is in royalty, E is in entertainment, and Y is in young. Jimmy Carlton.
That was entertaining.
That was creative.
the judge said that was entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's done that before.
Is there any medication that you take regularly or on a daily basis that you have not taken today that would affect your ability to understand?
He's rapping. You realize that he's.
And Mr. Winfrey, can you tell me how old are you, sir, and how far have you gone in school?
I'm 34 years old. I made it with an 8th grade education. When I went to prison, I attained a high school diploma through Stratford Institution,
Okay.
private college.
So you have your GED?
High school diploma.
Okay. And are you able to read, write, and understand the English language, sir?
Yes.
Do you understand that you are charged with the following offenses in indictment 22 SC 183572, count 1, RICO, count 24, which is the violation of the Drug Act for the possession of oxycodone, and then count 25, which is the possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and then you understand that the state will be null crossing count 26.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions about that for your attorney, Ms. Miller?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges? And if you pled not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial.
Yes, sir.
Have you had enough time to understand and speak with your attorney, Ms. Miller, about all the facts and circumstances of your case and why you're here today?
Yes, sir.
And do you need any additional time to discuss any questions or concerns that you have in relation to the plea that you're before this court to take today?
No, sir.
And are you satisfied with the services that Ms. Miller's provided?
Absolutely.
And Ms. Miller, do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
I do.
As well as any defects in the indictment, including any with respect to your client's name for the purposes of this plea?
I do.
And Mr. Winfrey, has your attorney advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge you'll be pleading guilty to?
Yes, sir.
And did Ms. Miller advise for count 1, the conspiracy to violate RICO, minimum is 5 years, the maximum is 20 years?
Yes, sir.
And for the possession of oxycodone, did she advise the minimum is 1 year, the maximum is 3 years?
Yes, sir.
And lastly, for count 25, did Ms. Miller advise that the minimum for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon is 1 year, the maximum is 10 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have any questions about the minimum maximum sentence you could potentially be facing based on your plea of guilty here today?
No, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Winfrey, do you understand this is a negotiated plea of guilty, which means the state and your counsel, Ms. Miller, will make a joint recommendation to the court as it relates to a sentence. The court does not have to follow that sentence and can sentence you to the maximum on each charge and run the maximum for each charge consecutively or one after another if she sees fit.
Yes.
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 And do you understand that this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as in other jurisdictions, including the federal court, sir?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Winfrey, do you understand that if you're not a United States citizen, a guilty plea will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, regardless of any advice given to you by your attorney or anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses by entering a plea of guilty here today?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Winfrey, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up the following rights: the right to trial by jury, the right to remain silent and to not incriminate yourself, the right to confront witnesses against you, the right to the assistance of counsel hired by you or court appointed if you were unable to afford an attorney at the trial of your case, the right to presumption of innocence, the right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence, the right to subpoena witnesses and to compel the production of evidence, the right to have the charges against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt by the state of Georgia, and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after trial. You understand that you are waiving or giving up all of those rights by pleading guilty here today?
Yes, sir.
And has anyone, Mr. Winfrey, forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea before this honorable court here today?
No, sir.
And is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you're in fact guilty?
Yes, sir.
And as it relates to the charges, how do you plead to count 1 and indictment number 22, SC 183572, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
And how do you plead to count 24, the possession of oxycodone?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
And lastly, how do you plead to count 25, which is possession of a firearm by a convicted felon?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
And Mr. Winfrey, is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of all the charges against you, sir?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand that you may only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand that you have only 4 years from today for a felony charge to file what's called a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness of this guilty plea?
Yes, sir.
And is that something that you and Ms. Miller spoke about before today and that you fully understand?
I'm understanding all my rights of the guilty plea.
All right, let me just add, in addition, you have 30 days from today to file a direct appeal, and you have until the end of this term of court to file a motion that would seek to withdraw your guilty plea. Doesn't mean any of those would be granted, but those are the time limits. Understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Michael, can we
so-
stop it for a second? Yeah, stop
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
second. Because of that point that somebody made, this becomes a win for Fanny. Excuse me. My mother's name was Fanny, so I keep, returning to that. Becomes a win for Fannie Willis. And she says, I had all these pleas of, on the RICO counts and all. And that turns out to be true, even though we now know that the jury didn't like the case on these cases. And talk about possession of oxycodone. Oh, it wasn't even possession with intent to distribute.
Let me go check my medicine cabinet.
I know he's got to get back to making money. He's got to get out of Bryce Street. He's been there. He's going to get probation. The judge is going to give him probation. That's all over. And it just seems to me like legalized blackmail, and it's just terrible.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as we're going through all of the what sounds like kind of boring stuff, it's so critical to get his not just his plea, but that it was knowingly made, it was voluntarily made, it was intelligently made, there was no coercion. Interesting backstory with this guy. He pled guilty in 2015 to charges that had to do with shooting up Lil Wayne's bus. Okay,
Right.
back in 2015. He later appealed that, saying the judge had inserted himself into the plea negotiations, and the conviction was overturned. So,
Doesn't
all of these
surprise
little
me.
steps, Oh, guess who his attorney was back then? Any guess?
Who? No.
Brian Steele. So, all these little steps that we see, that seem like plodding along, they're there for a reason. And if the system ain't done right, then, you get convictions overturned. Who knows if he really did or didn't shoot up Lil Wayne's bus? The
Right.
fact
You
is,
don't
it
know.
was screwed up when they did the deal.
But by the time he would get to trial next year, he would have been in jail 2 years. I mean, he's 34. Yeah, he clearly has talent. And interestingly enough, one of the jurors said, "Hey, wait a second," and related to this lyrics thing, right? And then let's go back, because this is all I'm thinking about him. He's tapping. You notice how he's tapping when he's doing, and when he's getting his name, he's got that whole musical sound, musicality
Yeah,
about his voice.
and a lot of our female viewers were just, they were swooning over his Luther Vandross type, vibe.
Another fine specimen, I think I saw. But anyhow, the juror said this whole lyrics where people are, the prosecution wants to lock you up. And for lyrics, they said, you have to lock my sons, their friends, my cousins, my kids. Everyone's singing these lyrics. This is everything. It's like, years ago when you were a prosecutor, and it was like, do you have anybody in the family who's ever been in possession of marijuana? And everyone, it was terrible. And now it's like, are you kidding me? Somebody else, you don't know, do you know anybody who has not smoked weed or something? I mean, that should be the answer. I mean, then you're off because you're not in the real world. But
things change. Things change.
In exchange, it's a big change. And how would I proceed, Kimberly Johnson, legalize blackmail? The problem is that if my client wants to plead guilty and gets a great deal, and all you can say to a client is, "I can get you if you're guilty and you want to plead guilty, I'll try to get you the best deal. If you're not guilty, I'm here to fight for you." That's all you can really say to a client.
Yeah.
And he's 34 years old. He could be 40 years old before he ever gets out of jail again, And
he of all the defendants, I think he's the oldest. I think he is the oldest of all these folks
defendant
wrapped up in this thing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's all I got for you today. What do you got?
Since as Winfrey entered an Alford plea after the original plea was overturned, and all, but the judge did give him probation, so he's he's
out. He's out. And
speaking of people who aren't out, speaking of people who aren't out, who isn't out?
Who isn't out? You mean
Yak
in this case?
Yeah,
Yak and Shannon still. But we're going to get an update on that tomorrow. This is a good way to promote this one more time before we say goodnight. And that is that we have Max Shard on tomorrow, and we have Mr. Kokomo. And I believe it's Shaquille. Somebody suggested that, but we are going to get to the bottom of it because we're going to ask them. So they'll be on. We believe we're going to have them on for the whole hour tomorrow night from 6 to 7. So the Penny case.
We stand corrected. Antonio Sledge is the oldest. Okay, we stand corrected.
Oh, okay. How old is Antonio Sledge? He's 35, 36. Anyway, so we'll see if the Penny case cooperates with our schedule for tomorrow.
Well, I'll be here.
If I have to pull the plug early to be back, I will. But I hope that it doesn't.
You're not missing.
Hope you get everything crammed in there.
You're not.
No. I'm not missing. I am not. I'm not leaving you alone with Max Shard and Kokomo. I will not do that.
What do you mean leaving me alone? I'm a married woman, dear.
Well, see, there you go. You're going down that road. I just meant because you're going to get to hog all of the good questions, and you had to go the other way with that.
I'm a lawyer too. Well, I had to go the other way because look at our chat. And we don't mean anything by it because we are impressed with everybody's incredible skill in this case, and that's really what this case is all about.
I think, and you said this well. You said this well, and I'm going to give you credit for this. I think you were about to mention it. That there's this perception, or has been, and I think this case really helped change the perception that all defense lawyers are just these grinders who are doing the work they have to do. That their clients are all criminals, and I think the shine on defense attorneys from this case alone has really changed that perception. So I think that's a point well made.
I hope that it's our Perry Mason moment. That's a show from the 50s that's now brought back by Kathy Bates, where defense attorneys don't have to be oh, I saw the light and I became a prosecutor, that we do a good job. And I was a prosecutor also, but we do a good job for the system. And, you know, my hope is that prosecutors don't abuse the system, because we need them. We absolutely need prosecutors, but we need the system not to be abused, and we need people not thrown in jail or power to be exerted the way it's been. And Michael
you know
Bryant,
why?
you're going to be in court and seeing that. Why?
Yeah, because they should just do the right thing. That's why. That's it.
Okay.
It's very simple. So I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm
We'll
Linda
see you
Kenny
tomorrow.
Bodden, and together we are Justice Served. We will see you tomorrow. But in the meantime, subscribe, like, share, and notify. See ya.